Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Nerd Ledger. We are the nerds. I'm Cage, that's Chair, and we are back on a Sunday for some reason, but it's actually for a good reason because we're going to talk about X-Men '97, the first two episodes that came out.
Yeah, that's what the Nerd Ledger here reviewing Saturday morning cartoons on a Sunday, baby. So
Exactly.
that's basically what this was, and I just want to put this out here right away, dude. Like watching this show really did make me feel like I was a kid again watching an old school Saturday morning cartoon because it was so cheesy
Yeah.
and I missed it. I missed that. Like, I really did miss that. It's weird how much I missed that because it's not even like in the Bad Batch. Like the Bad Batch is so intense now, I forgot like how nice it is when it's just so dramatic and like off the rails. Anyway, please continue with the
Yeah.
introduction. Sorry,
No,
but I
no,
just had to
yeah.
jump in. Like we watched X-Men '97. I think we both loved it, and
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. And so, um, on Wednesday we'll do our normal thing. We'll talk about the Bad Batch from last
well,
week.
I had to text you about that. I had to text you about that. I'll have to
Oh,
text you about that. We'll see what's going on. I
well,
may have something going on.
all right, fair enough. We'll figure it out.
Okay.
We'll talk about that, and we'll continue to talk about the new X-Men '97 episodes as well as they drop. So,
Yep.
yeah, I guess before we get into anything that has to do like with the show specifically, we should talk about all the noise around the show.
Yeah.
Not, I mean, the like head writer of season 1 and 2 is he got fired and stuff, and all this other stuff happened, and it's probably a mutual thing, but it might not be, and there's probably an NDA, so nobody really knows what's going on with any of that. And to be honest, most people don't really care.
Yeah.
That's just the reality of it. So, um, the biggest issues I have right now are that people seem to think that everyone cares about things that nobody cares about. Like when they came out, like there was an article, Morph is non-binary,
Mm.
and we talked about it at the time, and I said it's not going to be present in the show at all. Like they're not going to mention it in the show. And
Yeah.
so it's not really relevant, but people will be mad about it and people will refuse to watch the show because of it. And then they'll expect you to also want to boycott it. And like I get it, people like there's this massive anti-woke movement thing where everybody is like, oh, Morph is non-binary. Oh my God, that's awful. I'm not gonna watch the show. They're making X-Men woke. Disney's ruining X-Men. And to those people, I just say, please go read the 80s runs on X-Men by Chris Claremont. Go back and read the 60s runs. Watch the X-Men 92 cartoon, the X-Men cartoon that came out in the 90s,
Mm.
because X-Men has always been about accepting people who are different than you. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like the view that like Charles Xavier is MLK and Magneto's Malcolm X and all that. Like I think it's good to be able to apply X-Men to the real world and say these are similar things here and here and here, whatever. But
Mm.
it's not exclusive to the human rights movement. You can apply it to everything. You can apply it to the LGBT community and the rights that they deserve and things like that. Like the bottom line is the message that you get when you watch X-Men, when you watch
Mm.
the 90s cartoon, when you read the comic books is we should be able to coexist with people that are born different than us.
Yeah.
Like that's it. That's the entire point of X-Men. And for people to sit there and get mad that Disney is ruining X-Men and they're going woke, my brother, trust me, you don't care about X-Men. You are not an X-Men fan. You've never watched it. You never read it. You do not care. All you care about is the fact that something is happening that you don't like. And
Yeah.
this is something that I in my real world conversations with people that I've had to really stress over and over. And what it is, what
People.
well, there's one person who he lives his life on the internet and like everything and all this stuff. But it's the
Is
same
it
thing with
someone I know?
yeah. It's not just him. Like it's something that you hear sometimes come up because like I don't know, but when you focus your life and
Mm.
your energy on things you hate, you lose. Like
Yeah.
you lose everything. You lose time, you lose energy, you lose enjoyment. Like instead of getting mad because you heard something was in a TV show that you wanted to watch and not watching it, instead of getting mad about it, go watch it for yourself. because all you're doing by not watching it is denying yourself enjoyment. And then you put the time in and go online and say stupid, hateful shit. Like, you're not accomplishing anything. You're not preventing anything. You're not saving anyone. You're losing time. You're losing life. You're losing energy. You're losing enjoyment. That's it.
Yeah.
I don't get it. But yeah, it's not my role in this world to tell people how to live their lives. If that's what gives them meaning or whatever, then good for them, I guess. But when it comes to X-Men, I really don't get it because this is quintessential X-Men, and yes, of course, it's present in these first 2 episodes that this whole, the mission of Charles Xavier, coexistence between mutants and humans. But like, if you watch the 90s cartoon, it's everywhere in there. There's a whole story arc where Professor Xavier's murdered in the 60s, and in the future, right, like it's like a big civil war between humans and mutants, led by Magneto, and Wolverine is married to Storm. That's an interracial relationship in the mid-1990s on TV. And if you look at statistics from the 1990s, 80% of Americans were against interracial marriage in the 90s still.
Yeah.
Like, and if that happened today, if it, with a gay couple or something in X-Men, people would be losing their minds, and it'd be all over the internet about how they're so woke and gay people shouldn't be kissing in kids shows, even though it's a show rated TV 14, so it's not actually for kids. But whatever, like,
yeah,
these are the things that come up, and it's just like, I don't know why people have the time and energy to focus on all this bullshit. like, bro, most people out here, like the majority of people, you, me, like, even though we're more steeped in this because we talk about it,
yeah,
the majority of people don't know, don't care, and never will.
I'm not really steeped in it at all, but I'm I'm just kind of a fun loving guy. Like, I'm just really nice. Like, that's just kind of like a big part of my personality. So it's not my first thing to watch this is like, oh, I hate this show so much. You love it and go on the internet and say mean things. Like, I'm sitting there rubbing my hands together, like taking notes of all the things, like to get in arguments with people on the internet. That's like not who I am, like, as a person. Like, I just get high and watch cartoons. Like, that's I've been. I used to do it with eat a bunch of sugar, and now I smoke a weed called cereal milk. So it's just what it is.
Yeah, but
trade one thing out for the other.
Even if it was bad, we would just move on with our lives.
Yeah, exactly. Say like
we would talk about it on the podcast and be like, it was disappointing. They could have done this better, whatever. Like, we would analyze it a little bit, but like, we wouldn't be sitting there going online telling people like they're stupid and idiots for liking it and that they're ruining our media and all this shit. Like,
usually all we do is like put on our hazmat suits, like, which I think is a bit we should do one day if the podcast ever does take off. Like, we just freaking have like a radiological alarm go off in the background and we start reading like the most toxic comments. Like, just like, damn, what a nasty person for saying this. Like, because some of these people say things that you would never hear like in real life ever, like in a personal one-on-one conversation.
And that's one of the things. Like, it really, like, it made me laugh when I was watching X-Men 97. Like, the things people were saying about Morph, because Morph was fucking cool as shit.
Yeah, well, Morph was on the show for like a whole 5 seconds. That's another thing about Morph.
Yeah, but he, bro, like in that time, he transformed into Archangel. He transformed into Sabretooth. He transformed into Psylocke. He was transforming into all sorts of cool ass characters. Yeah, it's just cool to see.
Seeing Psylocke was pretty badass.
Yeah.
I thought it was bad. We could probably start talking about the show now. Okay, so in short, there are people bashing the show on the internet for no reason. They haven't watched it. Yes, it's really cheesy, and I think that's all. That's another problem I think that some people are gonna have, like, with the show, that like not like they're not like me. They're gonna watch the show and it's gonna be a little too cheesy for them, I think. And other than that though, like, yeah, let's just get into it. Episode 1 was like, to me, my X-Men, and just started off with like a warehouse, and there are these bad guys, like, with sentinel arm guns, or what are those? Like, do you know what that is?
Yeah. So
because, like, and again, just to put out like our dichotomy here, Cage knows the show very well. I don't. Like, I don't know the show at all. I watched X-Men Evolution or whatever it was called in 2003 and 2000.
Yeah, X-Men Evolution was really good too. I was a big fan.
Yeah, it was a lot more edgy than this though. But yeah, that's what I watched.
Yeah, because they were all like in high school,
Yeah, absolutely. But that's what I watched. Not
and the dynamics were different, but yeah. So I was, I watched the whole '90s series, and
Did you watch it as a kid too?
yeah,
Like,
I
did you
did.
at
I
least
watched it
watch?
growing up.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Okay.
watched it growing up, and like obviously when you're growing up watching these things, like you're not like catching them every time, like you're not watching in order. You're just catching it every time it's on,
Yeah, exactly.
And so like but you don't really need to. Um, but like yeah, I grew up with it, and I've rewatched it now that it's been on Disney Plus as well, and there's good episodes, there's mid episodes, whatever, but overall like it was a really great series, and like I'm glad it's back, and I appreciate the animation style upgrades. People can complain about Rogue's butt and breasts being smaller, but I don't think that's relevant at all.
Her butt. She was still pretty busty. Not gonna lie.
Well,
She
and
was.
also like, why are we why are
And her
we
butt was
sitting
still
here
nice. Do you want to
sexualizing
know?
cartoon characters?
Do you want to know why I think? Well, excuse me for a minute. Why I sexualize this cartoon character? Like, you don't want to know why? You want to know why I think her butt is still really nice, and we just haven't have a good angle of it yet? Is because in the credits, you know how like they have that like it goes like the 3D model that spins around like while it talks
Yeah,
about their powers, right? They
yeah.
don't do Rogue. Like they intentionally skip Rogue. So you know
Oh,
what? I think they're hiding something back there, man. I think she's packing and they want to keep that hand hidden.
yeah. But also just like frame by frame, like in the original X-Men cartoon, like it'll look different. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
absolutely. Absolutely. No, but I know there are some scenes I've seen them on the internet, blowing around because they're thirsty people. I hang out with them sometimes. And apparently there were some like pictures of like there were some stills of Rogue's butt and it looked really nice in the original cartoon, apparently, according to the internet. So,
yeah. I
that's
mean,
all the internet can think about these days.
but
So
yeah.
they break, yeah, they break in and like Morph shows up first, right? Or who is that first that shows up first? Is that Morph that shows up first on the edges, or is it Storm? It's Storm, right?
Uh, on what?
And the episode one, they break in, they go into that warehouse, like they start fighting the bad guys with like the Sentinel arm cannons.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, those Sentinel arm cannons are. It's kind of like newer technology, but essentially, yeah, they've concentrated like instead of having to actually build full Sentinels, they can just put on those little arm gun things, and
Yeah.
it does a similar thing, and it becomes more relevant, I suppose, in episode two. By the way, spoiler warning for people who haven't watched.
Mm,
We're gonna
yep.
spoil it, so um,
But spoiler warning in the description.
yeah, it's in the title of the thing, but
Okay.
um,
Wait, it says Bad Batch.
does it? It shouldn't. I
Yeah,
didn't.
it
I didn't
does.
update it. Then hold on. 1 second.
What?
Hold on.
This is a professional production. I'm the only one watching. And now I'm confused. What are we talking about? You lost me as a follower. Just kidding.
I'm sorry. It did it update?
Yes, it
Okay.
did just now.
There we go. That's the thing is I have to click the I have to not only put in the new description, then I have to click done. So
Yep.
anyway,
Mm,
now I'll join you as a confused viewer. So
all right. Why
um
are they talking about the Bad Batch? I'm just kidding.
yeah
Anyway, though, so they go to this arm. They basically, so the X-Men like break into this freaking warehouse where these bad guys have a mutant captive, and like they're salvaging a Sentinel, like which I know because like I'm just kind of a layman with the X-Men. I don't read comic books. I don't really like comic books at all. Not really, just not a fan. Like I'd rather read like a novel. And uh, so I just kind of know like their basic powers. Like Storm can make like storms happen, and Cyclops shoots lasers out of his face hole, and
technically their energy blasts from another dimension.
yeah, whatever you say. And the Sentinels are like robots that they built to like hunt the mutants, and they're really overpowered.
Yeah, and they
Like for
have
at least for like yeah,
technology that neutralizes parts of like temporarily parts of your
or
DNA.
suppresses mutant powers and stuff like that.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Not
So
always, but I mean the collars do that more now. So
yeah. I noticed everybody had those collars on, so that was an interesting one.
yeah, and they
Um,
yeah. So these gangsters, not really, but like the friends of humanity. So I guess
Friends of Humanity.
this all comes back to the
Yeah, and there was no recap, by the way, guys. So they're just dropping it
Okay,
right in the
I'll give you
middle
the
of this.
recap. I'll give you the recap.
Okay.
So the very end of X-Men, the animated series from the 90s, there's like a UN convention or whatever, and this guy who works for the NSA, his name is Henry Gyrick. He was the guy who was in prison in episode 2 that they were talking
I
to.
remember him. Yep.
So he was given this speech and saying like mutants are dangerous. We need to pass this bill, essentially like a mutant containment bill, which would put them in essentially prisons or concentration camps. He's like, we need to do this. We need to protect humans because mutants can destroy us if they want, kind of thing. And then Professor X like rolls out and he's like, "Yo, bruh, what the fuck is you doing, bruh? Like mutants, like we can coexist and all this stuff." And Gyrick's like, "Why are you trying to protect mutants so much? Are you one?" And then he uses like this device. The best way to describe it is like a gaydar kind of, where like it's like it detects mutants, but like it like sends like these electromagnetic pulses and like fucked with Professor X's like brain waves, because he's telepathic. And then he just started dying.
Ooh.
And so Professor X is like dying, and they're like, we can't really help him. And because he's like unconscious, like they're like, well, if we could get him to contact the Shi'ar, which is like this alien race with futuristic technology, like he has a telepathic connection with Lilandra, the leader of the Shi'ar. And they're like, well, if we can get that connection, we can get her to come and like see if they have technology that can save him. But because he was unconscious, I couldn't do that. And in the meantime, mutants are like, bro, like the humans did this to Professor X. Like the guy out here telling us we need to like coexist, and like they're willing to literally assassinate him. Like, bro, it's Civil War time. We're on it. Like we're ready. Like the mutants were like, preparing to fight. And of course, Magneto is right there to lead the charge. Magneto's like, yeah, I'm gonna lead them. We're gonna fight the humans. And then Jean, Cyclops, and Wolverine, they go to confront Magneto pretty much, and they're like, listen, like Charles isn't dead yet, and you can potentially help save him because his telepathy, there's electrons in the brain, so he could boost his brain waves using his powers, like his powers of magnetism. So they convince him to come with them, and he does, and he's able to use his abilities to boost Professor X's telepathic abilities to contact the Shi'ar. And so Lilandra shows up, and she's like, yeah, we can save him, pretty much. And they're like, well, will he ever be able to come back to Earth? And like pretty much just Charles like speaking to them in their minds, saying like, my mind can come back, but my body can never come back, kind of thing. So like the only way they can keep him alive is if they sustain him through their technology where they are. Like he can't come back to Earth. So essentially, Professor X is dead. Like, and for all intents and purposes, he's not actually dead, but he's kind of dead. And so now here we are. This is where we are. And Jean being pregnant is a new thing here for people who we'll get there. We'll get there.
So as a layman, like I know, isn't there a kid like super overpowered or something like that? Like, isn't he like a living god or something? Like Cyclops isn't Jean Grey's kid. Like, doesn't he like create his own? Oh wait, or am I thinking of?
So you're thinking of Professor X's kid. You're thinking of Legion.
Okay.
But they do so. I don't want to like get too far ahead of people because you don't really know what the show will do, but essentially when you see Jean Grey pregnant, it's not Jean Grey.
Yeah.
Well, at least I know. And so what's funny is like I was watching it, and my wife, like, she doesn't really watch like this stuff that much, but like she was getting very interested, and I was like, well, that's not really Jean Grey. And she's like, well, who is it? And then I'm like, well, I don't know what they're gonna do with the show, but I'm pretty sure it's we'll get there in episode 2, but like yeah. So the kid is Cable, Nathan Summers, Cable.
Oh, Cable from like from
Deadpool 2.
Oh yeah, no, I know Cable because I played the Deadpool video game. I rented it and it was really funny. That's funny. Is Cable? Huh? Interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, also that was in episode 2. They changed his middle name. But anyway, so we kind of pick up here. with the Friends of Humanity, which is also from the '90s cartoon. They're like a big anti-mutant group called the Friends of Humanity. Yeah, one of their leaders was Creed, the son of Sabretooth, and Mystique, brothers with Nightcrawler. It gets really convoluted. All right, I'm telling you, it gets really convoluted. But yeah, so they're the Friends of Humanity, and they captured this young mutant, who is Sunspot. For people who don't know, that's Sunspot. And so yeah, the X-Men show up to save him, and yeah, Storm comes in, Morph, Cyclops, bro, it's a cool sequence, you know what I'm saying? And it's some
Yeah, like, and the one that really impressed me the most was Cyclops. Cyclops is like really badass in this show.
yeah.
Like really badass. Like I didn't know Cyclops could do that stuff, like use his beams to like make himself like run faster backwards and stuff like that, or like, you know,
Yeah.
catch himself in a fall. That was really cool. That's when I really started getting into it.
So the thing is, like, this show has always done this correctly, in my opinion. Even in the
Yeah, I'll be right
'90s
back.
version.
Sorry, I'll let you talk. I'll be right back.
Oh, sure. Even in the '90s version, like, where they established Cyclops as like the proper leader of the X-Men, because in like some of the movies and stuff, it's always kind of been like he's kind of a joke in a lot of ways, and he's like overlooked a lot of times. And I'm not a big fan of Cyclops. I think Cyclops is kind of a dick, but like, he is incredibly powerful, and so for people who haven't read comic books or other things, like, really, like, Wolverine is incredibly liked. Like, he's really well liked by most people. But like, it's to the point where, yeah. So I was just talking about like this dichotomy between Wolverine and Cyclops, kind of, where like the majority of people like love Wolverine, right? And it leads me to think that people overrate Wolverine a lot. And I prefer Wolverine to Cyclops too, but like on like power level, like Cyclops is incredibly underrated. Like,
Yeah.
the things he can do, and it's because people don't really see him that way, because the movies didn't do a very good job establishing him as like the guy. Like, he is a leader of the X-Men. He is more or less an Omega level mutant, similar to Storm and Iceman, and you know, characters like that. But like, it's crazy because, you know, it's great to see
Yeah,
a
he
show.
can do he can do really badass stuff. Like I did, like again, you know, I was saying, like, I'm a layman. Like I don't read the comics, so I don't know any of the things Cyclops can do. I know he's always in the X-Men and he's always like a primary member of like the team. But you're right. When you grew up watching like X-Men Evolution, you kind of assume that like Wolverine is like the main character because that show is so focused on him because it was so edgy, you know.
Well, yeah,
Uh,
and the show put everybody except for Rogue. I mean, sorry, except for Storm and X-Men in high school, right? So like, sorry, Wolverine and Storm are like the adults, and everyone else are like kids, you know. But in reality, like, I mean,
yeah,
Wolverine joins the X-Men late, like really late. Like, in terms of comic books, right? The X-Men were they started in the '60s, early '60s, and Wolverine didn't join till like '80s. Like, you have 20 years of history of X-Men with no Wolverine in it. And that's just like how it is. But that, and I think like one of the strengths of the show has always been the team they picked. Having Rogue and Gambit as part of this team, like, it's a major testament to the show, because like, these are characters that are interesting, and like, again, characters that didn't join the X-Men for a long time, like, have more kind of shady past. Like, Gambit and Rogue were not heroes when they came out. Like, Rogue, obviously, well, maybe you don't know this as well, but Rogue, the reason why she can fly and the reason why she has like super strength is because she literally stole half of Carol Danvers' powers.
I know that Rogue, like her, so like, again, like, you know, I just know some layman things. And again, I watched X-Men Evolution, and X-Men Evolution, like her not being able to touch people is like a really big thing. But
Mm-hmm.
you know, but I do remember that she could steal powers, and eventually she can like kill people, right? Like she can straight up just
Yeah.
murder someone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So like,
people who know the MCU now, they know Carol Danvers, aka Captain Marvel. but
Yeah.
she wasn't Captain Marvel in comics till like 2009 ish. Before that,
Mhm.
she was Miss Marvel, and Miss Marvel's comic book first appearance of Mystique happened in Miss Marvel, and Rogue shows up in Miss Marvel, and Rogue working with Mystique. Some of this was in the '90s cartoon as well, where uh, she touches with her bare hand, she touches Carol Danvers, and literally
Mhm.
holds on for so long that she absorbs her powers, and Carol Danvers goes into a coma, and she's like
Yeah.
in the hospital in a coma under Jane Doe, and so um, Rogue's additional powers, right? Rogue's actual power is she can touch somebody, absorb their knowledge and expertise and
Yeah.
their powers temporarily. And if they don't have powers, then she absorbs like part of their life force a little bit. But that is her mutant power. But because of how long she held on to Carol Danvers, she got her abilities to fly and her super strength. So, and eventually, obviously, Carol Danvers recovered, and she's still ultra powerful. But she would have been more powerful without if Rogue hadn't done that, which is crazy to think about. And you think about it in terms of the MCU in the future, if they bring Rogue in, how is this how they kind of reduce some of those powers that Captain Marvel has?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Maybe. I don't know.
So, but yeah, very interesting stuff. But I don't remember where we were at. I was
We're
talking
still
about. I was talking. Yeah,
we're
yeah,
still
yeah.
dancing around like the warehouse. Basically, we're still kind of been talking about the warehouse, but we're just talking about everything because this is when this is kind of a problem with this show, and it's a good problem to have. Is like there's so many characters. Like there are literally so many X-Men. That intro is really cool. I'm sure you watched it every single time. I can only watch it
Mm.
once or
I
twice.
watch it. I watch it
No,
once and then I skip it. Like I
okay.
know
Yeah,
people like make a big deal. People do the same with Game of Thrones. I never skip the intro, bro. I'm just trying to watch the show.
yeah,
I don't need to watch
same.
the. I don't need to watch the
That
intro
intro
every time.
that intro was dope. But also, like, it's pretty long, so I'm not trying to watch it the whole
Yeah,
time.
it's
It's like
very.
really loud, and I watch when
They,
I'm in bed. So,
they revamped the song a little bit, but it's more or less the same song. They made some changes,
mm,
to make it a little different or like what more modern, I guess.
yeah,
And then obviously the animation's different, but the sequence is pretty much the same. So, but yeah, it looks really good, and like I like the combination of like the 90s ish art with the more
yeah,
updated like anime style art. I think it looks
yeah. I could
good.
definitely see how some people would find this show to be a little bit jarring, though. Like the animation style would turn them off because it is a little over the place. I'm really used to it because, like, I'm used to Adult Swim and like all those different animations that I grew up on. Like, I just you say it's because I'm a stoner. I think it's because I just watched Ed and Eddie and like Conan Kid Next Door, and I just really liked cartoons. And the next step up was like making the adult jokes and like going up from South Park to The Simpsons, and then eventually upgrading even then to which is essentially the cutting edge of animation at the time, which is Adult Swim. Which when they
Mm.
had like indie shows and stuff. So I remember as I was a kid, 12 years old, staying up to watch the Aqua Teen Hunger Force. I didn't smoke weed back then, and I still thought it was hilarious. But I don't know, it's just kind of thing at Ed and Eddie's where it all started. Where I just got used to that kind of dumb, like just kind of dumb slapstick humor. But there's a lot of shows like on Adult Swim that kind of have a similar animation style to this. Where it's kind of like they're focused to detail, and that means they have to suffer a little bit on the frames.
Mm.
If you catch my meaning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. But yeah, so we're in the warehouse. Sunspot has been captured, and the X-Men are here to save him, and they do.
Mm.
Um, and then, yeah, also Jubilee got an upgrade too. I'm pretty sure. Like Jubilee seems cooler. I mean, she was still like, she's a pretty big focus in the '90s cartoon, but like, I mean, she didn't use her powers a whole lot, you know.
Mm.
And so I feel like they make better use of her powers here, which is cool to see.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, obviously you get, Jean's pregnant, and Cyclops is dealing with a lot emotionally, not only because Jean's pregnant, but because Professor X isn't there anymore, and he's struggling to be the
Yeah.
leader. Wolverine was fucking with Sunspot in the danger room. Which is pretty funny. And also, I should say, because when the trailer came out, Wolverine's voice sounded very odd, but it sounds normal here. It sounds normal in the show. Sounds fine. So, And so yeah, Scott, aka Cyclops, dealing with all this shit. And they come to find out it's all irrelevant anyway because Charles left everything to Magneto. Um, and so
Yeah, and this is when the show really started getting Saturday cartoony, and that's when again I started to enjoy it even more. You know, 'cause Magneto is so like Shakespearean in his own like way. You know,
yeah,
like he's so dramatic. Um, and I didn't realize he looked so freaking hot too. Like, damn,
yeah.
he's got like the long flowing black hair. He's got his M on
Well,
his
it's white
chest, bro.
hair.
He's
It's
white.
white hair.
He's white right hair. That's right. That's why he's got white hair.
Yeah.
He's got that M on his chest. He's got these giant fucking like tree trunk arms. He's just strutting around, bro.
My wife said he
He's
looks
like
like
got Rogue
Fabio.
sweating over him. Yeah, he's got Rogue sweating over him, which is something like that happens in episode 2. Like
Yeah.
it's crazy, dude.
Yeah. Magneto is a new voice actor, but I think he's really good, and I think well, Magneto really is he's a heavy hitter of a character in this show. Like
Yeah.
he carries a lot of things, to be honest.
No, in this episode specifically, yeah, he does.
Yeah, it's
This
just
is
it's really interesting. I think it ends right where he says everything was left to him. Is that where the episode ends?
yeah, and he's gonna try and be better and like do the right thing for the human
Yeah,
mutant
he,
relations or whatever.
yeah. He wants to honor Charles's memory, right? Professor X's memory, because like despite everything, like they had a difference of opinion and ideologies, but like they were really truly good friends. And it's the respect and the love that he had for Charles Xavier that got him to come in the midst of him leading a civil war, essentially, to you know to help him and
Yeah,
to try to save his
part of the
life.
reason why why the real life X-Men movies worked, I forgot what they were called. But they're just called like X-Men, right? And um, not the new ones like First Class, but like the old ones, like where
Yeah. The first one was called X
yeah.
Men, and X2, and then The Last
Yeah.
Stand.
The reason why it worked is because Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart have such good chemistry with each other. Like, so that warmth is there between them when they're talking to each other, even though they're like, basically trying to kill each other or said like, they're mutants against each other. So
Yeah,
it's a good part of like, the X-Men chemistry that makes the show work is that everybody kind of knows each other low key.
yeah. Well, in Magneto is actually just like he is a savage character. Like he is willing to do whatever it takes to, you know, to survive and to help mutants survive. And for him, the solution is to, you know, to fight the humans if they're not going to accept them. And he's
Yeah.
had other solutions too. I mean, they mention in episode 2 Asteroid M, which if people aren't familiar with that, essentially Magneto has a big old asteroid that he keeps in orbit through his magnetic powers, and he gets a bunch of mutants to go live on it as like a retreat to get away from planet Earth where they're not accepted. So it's like it'll be an entire colony of mutants. But of course, some mutants are not nice, and they tried to kill him, and and then Asteroid M got destroyed. So, yeah, that happened.
And they got that one nation included in the UN after Magneto
Genosha, yeah,
saved. Yeah, Genosha, I guess, is like a nation of mutants.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. But you this is obviously it's the beginning of the series, so even though it feels like a lot's happening, like these are really baby steps because there will be a lot more that's gonna happen. I mean, I'm sure Apocalypse will be back because he's always back. But yeah, so it was funny because at the end of episode 2, my wife was just like, "There's so many twists." Because like
yeah.
there's so many different things happening at the very end.
There's a lot going on here too. So I feel like it's important for the that's why it's good for the freaking show to be so
Wheat brain.
simple, like in
Yep.
its own like simple, yeah, so its own simple Saturday way, Sorry,
Yeah.
I was just thinking about like something I was looking at.
Yeah.
It's good for the show to be simple, like it just feels like again like a Saturday morning cartoon because it's like so dramatic. It's like, oh, we're here to the UN's here to arrest you and put you on trial, Magneto, or it's like, because of, it's just like when you walked in there and you showed like just this book that just says the last will and testament of Professor Xavier. And then he's like, I'm in charge of the X-Men now. And the X-Men are like, oh, okay. Like Wolverine.
Yeah.
It's like, which is like such a Saturday morning giggly, like kind of dumb kid thing, you know? Like I really enjoy that stuff.
You know what? You know
And
what? There's only one thing that happened that I don't like, and it's when like they're outside like playing basketball or something, and Scott comes out and he's like talking to them, and then Wolverine is like pretty much says "I don't like you" kind of thing, which is like
uh-huh.
it was very prevalent in the early 2000s X-Men movies where like Scott and Wolverine don't like each other, but in the 90s cartoon like he did love Jean, but he respected her decision and he knew Scott would take good care of her. Like there was still like a brotherhood and a camaraderie, and he always called him Psych.
Hmm.
He never called him Summers or Scott. Like I feel like they're just trying to make Wolverine be ultra disrespectful for some reason to Scott Summers, you know.
Yeah.
So I wasn't really a fan of that, but it's just it's a minor thing. But yeah, um, then we have this whole thing where Magneto is struggling to get people to trust him, you
Yeah.
know, and like
Which
prove
is
that he's
again
changed.
one of those Saturday morning cartoon things.
Nope.
It's like this whole arc feels like it, you know, it's like, oh, I'm different now, I'm better, you know, and it just adds to the charm of the show.
Yeah,
Because
and he is trying to be better, right? He's trying
yeah,
to uphold the dream that Professor X had. And
yeah,
so like that's really important, and we get a lot of interesting things through that. We get Rogue, right? And she asks Rogue for advice, and you kind of get this like little hint that they like used to have a thing. And might have another thing coming, which
yeah.
obviously
It
is
was a
gonna.
little racy when he like tried to pull off her glove and then she pulled it back on and like walked out. Like, I was like, oh,
Yeah,
damn.
because of his powers, he can stop her from shucking his thing. You know what I'm saying? Oh, okay. Well, hey, whoa. Uh, but like obviously, if Rogue
He,
can touch someone and not have bad effects happen, like she's gonna be drawn to that person. You know.
mm,
Um, and so like that's how it is with Magneto. Um, but I really liked their conversation where he was talking about like when him and Charles were really close, and like then when he started his own kind of crusade, right, of like liberating mutants in his own way, um, he got the helmet, right? Because before he's like, I could always feel Charles's presence in my mind, like he wasn't like prodding or intruding, but like I could feel like his love, you know. Uh,
yeah,
and so he's like, but when I started my own crusade, I had to put the helmet on to prevent him from intruding my mind. And Rogue asserts, well, also if you felt his love present in your mind, you probably wouldn't have been able to go through with it too. Which is really interesting to think about, right? Like, it's not just like he doesn't just wear the helmet to keep Professor X from reading his mind, which Professor X wouldn't do anyway most of the time because like he doesn't like intruding people's minds unless he has to.
yeah,
And I think it's the same thing that Jean says in episode 2, where like she did it for Gyric's mind, but they wanted her to read Magneto's intentions, and she was like, "No, no, I'm not gonna do that." Like, not only is it an invasion of his mind, it's also meaningless because his intention right now could be different than his intention tomorrow,
yeah,
right? And so, I thought all that was really interesting. And then obviously when the UN comes to arrest him, like it's this perfect opportunity to prove to the X-Men that they can trust him now, by giving up and surrendering and
yeah,
going on trial, more or less. And
yep,
all that stuff, yes, it's very dramatic, but it's very interesting at the same time. Like knowing that he's probably not going to get a fair trial. Then we get this guy, the executioner. He comes in. He's got this bullet that can just like permanently erase a mutant's powers. He's wants to use it on Magneto. Ends up hitting Storm, which makes fucking Magneto go into some kind of frenzy. Starts going crazy, using his powers and
yep,
shit. And you see like Storm's a little different from other mutants in a lot of ways because it's not just like she has these powers, like she's actually like in tune with the weather and the elements, and like when she says like she can't feel the breeze anymore, like she literally just can't. because like she was the breeze before, and like when she grew up, she was like praised as like a goddess in her village and stuff, and like she's her whole identity is around her abilities to feel elements and control elements, and without that, like she's nothing, or at least she feels that way, right?
Mhm.
And Magneto knows that as well. So Magneto, hey, he's like, let's go into orbit, bitches. And that was really cool. What did you think of all that?
Yeah, I really like Storm, because she's so dramatic, and I've always enjoyed Storm's like little dichotomy because she's like one of the ones the most proud to be a mutant, but I remember a couple of things like from childhood, like the weather and be like a living. You cut out.
No,
You
you
there?
cut out.
Or the camera? Oh, the camera. No, the camera stopped and like
Well,
refreshed.
Discord broke then.
Okay. Are we still live? Are we good to
We're
go?
we're still good, yeah.
Oh, okay. Um, but so one of her powers, and I remember a lot in like the shows I would watch. And it's like oh, your power is like control the weather and like be a living goddess, and like my power is like to like kill people when I touch them. Like it's lucky you, and that's always been an interesting one because she's like the most proud, like the most proud of like the mutants basically, because she's always like yeah, I'm like Storm, like I'm super powerful and stuff like that, and so it's just interesting to see her lose her powers and like just get knocked down like that, and people were like looking at her in the bus because her hair was so crazy compared to like the rest of them.
Yeah. Well,
um
the
and
other
I knew Magneto was gonna rage no matter what because like that's just what what you do.
yeah. And he even right, like he even restrained himself in the beginning of the episode. He goes down to the sewers where the Morlocks live, and they were trying to attack the Morlocks, the Friends of Humanity, and he was like, "Bro, come on, like, bro, they live in the sewers to avoid people, and like you're coming down here, like they can't even like live in your waste, like,
Mm,
and but he didn't kill them still, like he didn't kill those guys, like, so that was really." It's a new leaf for Magneto. And the
yeah.
Morlocks also are very prevalent in the '90s cartoon, and Storm was their leader. But the Morlocks, like you're saying, like their abilities they view more as like a curse than a gift.
Mm,
Like a lot of them, like Leech, right? Leech is a little green dude. Like a lot of the Morlocks, like their mutations affect their appearance, and so
yeah.
like they literally can't just walk around society because people will hate them just for looking different. And boy, what a what a thing people can relate to, right? A lot of people, like the same people that people seem to think make the shows woke, but like this is like this message reaches everyone. Like it's not just like sure X-Men can be a proxy for minorities or for people in certain communities or this or that, but like it can just be a proxy for growing up feeling different too, because lots of people feel that way. Lots of people feel like they're treated different because their nose looks
Yeah.
weird or their ears look weird, or things they can't control, right? I mean, everyone can relate to that, and that's why I think X-Men is so universal. Like it's such a widely loved thing, even by people who don't necessarily understand some of the messaging within it. So
Yeah, absolutely. That's the big, a really big vibe I got, like, from that cartoon in the 2000s. Like, more of them were more goth and emo, kind of like
yeah,
social rejects more than just like, not like societal rejects.
yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I was I really thought Magneto would probably kill all those people when he brought him up into the atmosphere. Um, but luckily he didn't, and he was
Yeah.
pardoned, acquitted, not
Yeah,
acquitted, but
I thought he was gonna drop them too, and it was gonna be all crazy and intense, like, and just again ultra dramatic.
yeah. And Storm ends up leaving the team, right? So this is what my wife was saying: twist after twist, right? Rogue is leaving the team. And then a battered and exhausted Jean Grey shows up at the house after her baby is born. Sorry, this sounded confusing. I'm gonna rephrase this. So during the episode, Jean Grey is pregnant, and then she goes to have her baby, and the hospital
Yeah,
doesn't
with
want to.
Wolverine.
Yeah.
with Wolverine there. That was pretty funny.
Bro, she said, Logan,
He's like, oh,
he's
like the look he
he's
gave. He's
here.
like, oh,
Oh,
he's
apocalypse.
kind of a dumbass, you know. No, the baby. And he's just like, oh, he's like
Oh.
that. Oh is perfect. Yeah, like the oh, like he's just like such a grunt.
Bro, and then he's
And
just
they're
like driving on sidewalks like GTA style and shit. But yeah, and then yeah, they go to the hospital and the doctor's like, we don't give birth to mutants. Like, come on,
yeah.
bro. Like,
Yeah, you mutes could just well, to be fair, like, like I don't know, like not to be fair, I guess, like, racism or whatever, but like, she was like ripping like the freaking roof off of Wolverine's car because she was thrashing around in pain and stuff like
yeah,
that. So I don't know, man. Like, she could have freaking snapped that dude's spine in half with her brain power.
yeah,
So,
yeah. But Rogue,
so Rogue download
yeah, she downloads. Yeah, she absorbs
downloads
his
him.
medical expertise so that they could deliver the baby. She names the baby Nathan Charles Summers, which is Cable, and his full name in comics, I believe, is Nathan Christopher Charles Summer. Don't know why, but yeah. So, people who know it's Cable, and people who know it's Cable also know that that lady is not Jean Grey. And like I said, as soon as I saw her pregnant, I knew that's not Jean Grey. And so at the end of the episode, all the X-Men are together, and Magneto's there.
Playing basketball
Yeah.
in their basketball outfits.
Oh, and also Magneto asks Cyclops, "Do you trust me now?" And he's like, "Well, Charles trusted you, and I trust him, so that'll have to do," kind of thing. Because one of the big themes here is like Jean and Scott are thinking about leaving the X-Men once they have their baby, because right now they have a baby. And Scott then changes his mind because if Magneto's the leader, he needs to be around to keep an eye on him, but now he probably feels more comfortable leaving. So they're going to leave, guys, and Storm left, and everybody's sad, but they're all there, and then a second Jean Grey shows up, very tired, and asks for help, and everybody seems very confused because Jean Grey is here, and so how is there Jean Grey there? And twist, and then the episode ends. And then I see a preview for the future of the series, and I saw Nightcrawler, and that makes me happy.
Good.
But yeah.
When do we get new episodes? I forgot.
Every Wednesday, I think. So same as Bad Batch.
Wednesdays.
We might have to start just podcasting on Thursdays.
Yeah.
So
that works for me actually. So.
Yeah. But yeah. So I guess I'll give some context here. First, what I'll say is I think what they're doing is good, and I think that it works because people who don't know what I'm about to say are going to be intrigued and want to watch more and want to know, holy shit, why are there two Jean Greys? What happened? Who's the real one? Who's the fake one? What's going on, right? And so if you're not interested in knowing potentially any of that, then you can ignore what I'm about to say or like stop listening. But I like that people who don't know will be intrigued to want to watch more and learn more. And people who do know, we get the added benefit of we kind of knew, I guess.
Yeah.
But again, the show might do some twists and turns, and you don't ever know what might really happen. We just know what has happened. And so there's a clone of Jean Grey. And again, if you're not interested in this, so you don't want to be potentially spoiled, you can stop listening. But there's a clone of Jean Grey. Her name is Madeline Pryor. She's the Goblin Queen. She births
the Goblin
Cable.
The Goblin Queen.
The Goblin Queen.
Okay.
All
right.
And so questions that my wife asked that I can't answer because I don't know what they're gonna do with the show is, does she know she's a clone? How does she still have Jean's powers? Blah blah blah. Like, I'll let the show answer those questions because at this point I don't know either. Right? That's the whole point of the show. Like, they could do anything. They can whatever. But I do know. Well, I suspect that the Jean that's been here the whole time is Madeline Pryor, and the Jean that shows up at the end is the real Jean Grey. And it'll lead to some very interesting things. Because in comics, like, there's like this little thing where, like, obviously Jean is upset that Scott was like with this other person, but it's like, how's he supposed to know that it's not you, kind of thing. Like, obviously it has her memories, right? Like, like she talks about like when she first joined the X-Men, like, her and Scott were the first X-Men. She has those memories. Like, that's all there. And so how could he possibly know that it's not really her?
Yeah.
So she also had the memories of being the Phoenix. So, there's all that. But yeah,
there's a lot. There's a lot going on. See, the start of this episode seems a little like all over the place because like it's just there's so many things going on in this this show, and it's great. It's good that there are things going on. It's good that there are things here to like talk about. It's obviously like a good show, and the animation I think is good. Again, it reminds me, it was reminiscent of some Adult Swim content I've watched in the past, and you said it carry over. You think it carries the legacy of that animation from the old show pretty well?
Yeah. I think the upgrades are good. Like it still keeps true to like a lot of the original animation, but also like it upgrades it to make it look more modern. So like it's there for both people, right? Like people who don't want to watch old grainy animation from the 90s, like, well, this isn't that. But for people who want the kind of nostalgia of that show, it's still here. So I think.
You think?
I think. Well, I think it's there. But everyone has kind of different perceptions and perspectives on things. So maybe other people will think that it looks bad. I don't know.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Another thing I wanted to ask you specifically: who is that Sentinel King robot from the not?
Master Mold.
Who is that? Is he like a famous like character who's like supposed to be like name drop? Oh wow, like something, or was that just?
Well,
like...
he was in the '90s cartoon as well. So Master Mold essentially like right. So the Sentinels were created by Bolivar Trask, who was in episode 2, right? He was there.
Yeah, he was in jail.
Well, Gyrick's in jail, but like Bolivar Trask is with like he's like in this graveyard of Sentinels with like Master Mold.
Oh, that's right. Like, he was in episode 1. Yeah.
Yeah, and so. Master Mold is like think about him as like the nucleus kind of the Sentinels, where they built him as like the guy, right? Like he's gonna be the main Sentinel who like produces the other Sentinels or something like that. But essentially like Master Mold kind of started to have a mind of his own and turned against his human creators. And so, yeah, he had his own plans and his own, people doing his things to eliminate mutants, right? That's like his whole thing. So, yeah, it's not like a big thing. I don't know if Master Mold's going to be back or not, but he just sat in a chair, kind of, and told people what to do.
Okay.
So,
like the hive mind.
Yeah, more or less. And he was like self-aware, like he thought for himself, and instead of like just like being programmed to take orders, kind of thing,
Yep.
Ultron style or every other robot in fictional history, that AI kind of shit. So.
Yep.
But yeah, not a big deal, but it'll be interesting to see what other villains they bring back. I mean, who knows if they'll bring the Phalanx back, which, I mean, with technology, you would think that could come up again. Apocalypse most likely will be back. There's plenty of villains that they can do, newer villains. Mr. Sinister was a big villain in the 90s one as well, so it's possible that Mr. Sinister comes back. But yeah, it'll be interesting to kind of see where they go with all this. So
yeah, I'm excited. Do you know how many episodes they said they were gonna do?
I don't know. I think my guess would be like 10, but I'll see. 10. X-Men 97 episode count. 10. Yeah, 10 episodes. 10 whole episodes. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think the majority of people really enjoyed it. but I also know obviously there are people that just want to hate everything and will hate everything, and so
Absolutely. Yep.
yeah, yeah. So, um, but yeah, I look forward to episode 3, and I look forward to discussing episode 3 because I'm sure it'll continue to be good. I hope it'll continue to be good. Could maybe, we'll never know. Never know.
Yep.
But next time we podcast, we'll talk about all the like, bro. There were like 30 trailers that dropped last week. I don't know what's happening. I didn't watch most of them, but like House of the Dragon trailer dropped, Alien Romulus, just a bunch of shit, a bunch of trailers. I think I only watched one trailer that dropped, and I don't remember what it was. Something that's coming out. But yeah, it's a lot of trailers. It's a lot of trailers. And there's some like news, but bro, nerd news is like boring these days. Like, who cares anymore? It's all rumors and like insiders saying stupid shit. And it's like, okay, well, I'll just wait and see the thing. I'll just wait and see the thing. So, anyway, anything else you want to say?
No, really enjoyed it. Just again, like the dialogue was really simple and like very dramatic and over the top. Animation was great. Yeah, I think the decision to make Storm have no powers and like kind of just leave the squad and sort of leave on a bus in shame. Uh, um,
Yeah.
was a very good one. It's all good stuff. And I'm just excited to like you said, I'm excited.
Do you think Storm will get her powers back?
Maybe we'll see.
I think she will.
We'll wait and see.
I think she has to.
She'll make a dramatic saving at the end.
Yeah, it's kind of like
Dramatic save it.
It reminds me of Legend of Korra, the guy who would like take away people's bending.
Mm.
I don't know if you ever watched Legend of Korra, but yeah, maybe that's based on X-Men too, because like the whole cure to mutations has been a thing in X-Men comics for a long time. So it was even present in X3, where Rogue wanted to get her powers taken away for some reason. So, but yeah, I'm excited for the future of the show. Honestly, can't wait. So
same.
Thank you, everybody.
Yep.
Anything? Yeah, you got something?
No, I was gonna say like I don't see like how they can mess this up. Like it's hard. It's gonna be really hard to mess this one up because like they just keep it really simple, really basic like they have been. I think it'll be fine. Like it actually genuinely feels like a authentic Saturday morning cartoon.
Yeah.
So I just think they really need to keep that vibe.
Yeah. But thank you everybody for listening. If you've listened, if you're watching on the YouTubes or anything, you can, if you ever want to catch us live, you can follow the Twitch channel and you'll get a notification when we go live. You can follow, like, subscribe, whatever. Click all the buttons on the YouTubes and the ratings and reviews and buttons on the podcasting platforms where you can listen to us everywhere. Much love. Appreciate you. See you again later sometime in the future. Bye.
Yep.